So coming into the hall and finishing one's early morning duties, moving around, sweeping things, cleaning things, tidying up, drinking something, eating something, so on. Trembles of activity, various motivations, move around, individual ways things are coming together, coming along, sit down. So lots of change, just in that, lots of changing, isn't there? Things we feel interested in, or just do as a matter of course. And generally, in this atmosphere, quite mildly agreeable, not abrasive, not harsh, not pressurized, but confident, because it gives you a chance to just be less intensely impacted, less passionately involved, just clear, light, and then you don't lose touch with what stays, which is the knowing. So when we come to the hall and bell rings, it's time to do this. Okay, body, move body, door, shoes, awareness of other people, yes. Move along, trees coming into blossom, yes. And yet, something is pretty much behind all that, isn't there? Knowing it all fits into knowing, into some sense of an openness, right? What is knowing? Let's turn our light on that. Is it the flow of phenomena, or is it something not phenomenal, not of the flow of phenomena, but kind of a numinous, knowingness, which is not phenomenal. It's not discrete phenomena that come and pass. It's something else. We all, yes, we get it. Yeah, we try to place it. What is it? A thought? No, it's not a thought. Mood? No, it's not a mood. Mind? What mind? Must be mind, I suppose. What's a mind? So this kind of intriguing facet, particularly as we grow slightly less impassioned with events and phenomena, no longer such a crucial thing or a thing we can expect to last or be satisfying or, somewhat disagreeable. We recognise we can bear with it, and that is, unfortunately, maybe the way it is. So pain, sickness, psychological challenges, disagreeable. And yet the knowing really helps one to get less impassioned, less compacted, less impacted, less struggling, less besieged, less drowned in the pleasant, the unpleasant. And also to be discernment arise. And discernment isn't quite the same as knowing, it's to be able to differentiate. So knowing is just that basic openness, isn't it? Of course, these words themselves are purely noises. But if we ask, how do you know something, it generally means you give it attention, and then some words appear, some little bit of movement occurs. I call that's my mind. It comes up with some thoughts appear. And they kind of try to put a label on it as best they can, and they don't quite sum it up, because there's all kinds of different ways you can name phenomena. Is it a tree, or is it a bush, or is it a shrub, or is it a plant? Is it a laurel, or is it a cherry? Is it an apple, or is it a rose? Is it this particular rose or that particular rose? You go on and on and on. The world of naming is extremely intricate, and finally, what does the rose know? It's doing roses. It doesn't know anything about the name. So when we recognize things are not the names of things, and we apply that to people and ourselves, and we recognize that the naming process in terms of thoughts is kind of inaccurate. Called the Vajji Sankara. It's an activation. And it only estimates how things strike me at this particular time, vary, and that can shift, can't it? We can designate people according to their countries, but then they move the borders. I think Tunka Tanyato said Bulgaria has been shifted around quite a bit over the last 100 years. So, his grandfather he stayed in Bulgaria, but one kid was in Greece, the other one was in Macedonia, and they hadn't actually moved very far. They just moved the borders. So. Well, that can be a big deal, can't it, when you're trying to get from one country to another and find you're a foreigner. Or your country's been taken over by somebody else. Like Poland's been shifted around. It disappeared for a while, completely. They carved it up, it didn't exist. And came back in, they kind of shoved it further west. A bit of Germany got lopped off, and that shifted and changed. And, suddenly you're Polish, okay. So, and then there can be big things, can't they? Because you get the governments, the cultures, the ideologies, you have to adopt those. Language. And these kind of polyglot nations like the United States, what's that? United? Barely. United Kingdom. What's that? Irish tend to get left out. Welsh are in conflict. Scots don't want to be part of it. The Northerners dislike the Southerners. The Southerners dislike the Northerners. The Westerners feel left out. The town people don't trust the country people. This is the United Kingdom. Everybody hates the government. So this naming stuff is quite intense, isn't it? The world, as the Buddha said, the world is captured, held, ensnared by name. Over this, our passions, our designations, our affirmations, our acquisitions start to coalesce. I am one of these, I have one of that. She is one of those. We start to formulate and intensify grasping. It takes place, and then this is the source of conflict. So we have to say, well, you want to know something, you can throw some words around it, but don't get stuck in it. Okay, what are you left with? And the Vajji Sankara, we understand that to be what it is. You get the perceptions and feelings. The Citta Sankara, bound up with that. It strikes me as pleasant. It strikes me as jarring. It looks kind of interesting. That looks absurd to me. This way of knowing what, and that hits again an emotional trigger, perhaps more deeply embedded than the thinking process, or a perceptual process. It's a springboard, isn't it? Something lands on that place of contact, feeling arises, and it kicks, it pushes. Perception arises, it floods, and then springboard. Action, Sankara. get an emotional response. That's outrageous. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Suddenly the thing is designated as sankhara, citta sankhara. And then based upon that, I want one of those. Oh, let's get rid of that. Yeah. This is the way it operates, isn't it? Yeah. So you get this kind of process going on. And again, this is a source of problems. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean you can kill it. Just because you don't like slugs and spiders doesn't mean you have to stamp on them. They're not going to harm you. It's a perceptual, slimy, ugly, wriggly thing, volition. So with some understanding, with it, just okay, you start to soften around that trigger. And as you soften around that trigger, the knowingness becomes more apparent. Because all this trigger and activity of sankharas and vajjisankhara and citta sankhara, it kind of clouds, it stirs the pond, and we don't see the clear reflection. We think this stuff that's doing it is my mind or my heart. It's me. I'm thinking. I feel this way. Because it's intimate and one's taken a stand on it, unconsciously probably. We've grown used to that system of orientation, thoughts, perceptions. They've become a stand. Consciousness is established around that. That's the centre. It becomes me. This is my mind. This is my heart. My feeling. My opinion. It's a source of problems, isn't it? This is never anything but a partial subjective angle. And therefore there's possibility of conflict. And if one has taken a stand upon that, then the conflict can get quite severe. And also we experience a sense of, I feel frustrated. I feel I need. I feel, and then further, my mind is so in this way. If my heart would just calm down, if my mind would stop chattering all the time, so it turns back on the subject, doesn't it? That which was used as a springboard for action to designate things, designates a self who owns it, is then the recipient of all the turmoil of my mind or my heart. And the knowingness of that is minimal, perhaps, or at least it hasn't been used wisdom to discern what's really going on here. This thing is so quick and so fast and so much a standpoint that it's not easy. So can you just step back from it? Dispassion, linger, steady, and use the body and the breathing as a kind of a standpoint from which you can, oh yeah, there's that. Just get some space between, or space behind, or space above, or space around the mind. It's kind of standard practice, isn't it? And when there's that sense of a little more dispassion, the knowingness becomes more established. We feel, oh yeah, there. That's the one I don't have to fight over, or claim, or designate, or own, or is in conflict, or needs to be filled up with anything. Needs to have something done to it. And it's there. Or it's here, or it's somewhere. And then where? And can't say. This is where the designations fade out. Therefore, there's an end to this tangle. An end to the volitional tendencies based upon that tangle. An end to those. Since this is something that's so universal, it's a kind of fundamental quality. If you even want to do a simple mathematical problem, you've got to look at the page, the word, and go, all right, so it's that kind of moment, isn't there, where there's a taking it in, and then the activity. Of course, even though it's natural, it's often skipped over because the important thing is the activity to get into it as quickly as possible. There's passion, intellectual passion, emotional passion. If I can get this done, I'd be well praised or well esteemed, or I'd be satisfied. There's emotional passion, intellectual passion. But there's a dispassion. There's a possibility to review the aims, where one's going, and how, maybe this isn't going to arrive anywhere that's that useful. So we're checking volition. This is possible. And then the consciousness is not re-established in that same track. What is consciousness? Consciousness, that sense of that which makes an object present through the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, or the mind. Mano, something that makes a sight, a seeable, subject to feeling and perception. Right? So it's Mahavedala Sutta, Sariputta says feeling, perception and consciousness, they're conjoined. You can't distinguish, when one arises, the other arises. They're an amalgam, these aggregates. So consciousness is that which makes feeling and perception possible. Right? In other words, there is sight, and then there's, that impact occurs, contact occurs, perceptions and feelings arise. So it's all sort of mixed up. But what isn't said is that sankhara is conjoined. So sankhara is not conjoined. The volition is not inevitable, but volition acts as the springboard for the next consciousness, the next step for the conscious process to jump onto. So sankhara, avijja paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnana, vijnana paccaya namarupa, that sequence. So the volition pushes, jumps, and then we keep either on the same track, we keep looking at something, or we change, or sankhara says, no, go this way, think something, or touch something, but sankhara pushes that consciousness into various modes, and also various locations, sight location, sound location, touch location, thought location, and also into certain velocities or modalities, passionate, urgent, calming, steadying, whatever, So Sankhara pushes and flavours and directs. And so this is something that's not necessarily conjoined, but it operates in tandem. And so, and then one can discern that, recognise when the Sankhara calms down or ceases, stills for even momentarily, the knowingness comes to the fore. Then we have that pause moment, and then, and then the next jump. Mm-hmm. And that, now in terms of the Buddhist language, we don't really have a mind. Because if you try to, is thinking the mind, well we have a whole variety of functions and faculties that we call the mind: attention, thinking, pondering, cogitation. Manasikara, attention, and mind consciousness is certainly consciousness places things within this territory where cogitation, calculation, choosing and picking, wisdom, so forth can occur. So, because then you come to this mysterious statements like, when the mind ceases, this is something you should know about. So the knowing then is not contained within this mano faculty. It's not a matter of attention, cogitation, pondering, thought, however useful they may be. It's not in there. The mind arises, passes with attention, cogitation, and so forth. So we contemplate mental factors as they are arising. Just like when you contemplate body as it is, as energies, as solidities, as warmth, as fluidities, as painful feeling, as agreeable feeling, as movement. Within the body you can't find a body, you find embodied experiences. So the sense of I am a body can't be established, because which one are you? The visual, the tactile, the solidity, the fluidity, the movement, the painful, the unpleasant. It's the one that grabs you. Once kind of calms and steadies the whole thing, you see this is embodiment playing. And this is very much what was encouraged to do through meditation. So when all that mythology of solidity and unity and singularity and I am this is no longer supported, right? It doesn't, it's not as it is, it's something that's generated through a particular sticking together. If that is no longer supported, there's no base for the sense of I am this body, I am me, I'm in here, I'm big, I'm small, I'm old, I'm young, my hair is long, short, no hair, I'm male, all that stuff. There's no support for it. That's a weight off the mind, isn't it? That's a tangle, that's an agitation. Disappears. Can't say my earth element is better than your earth element. Because it's not really, you can't get mine onto it. That's a separate action, isn't it? The body doesn't do that. It's a designation that does that. Yeah? And it's a very yeah. And this incident where they, I think a few years ago, one of the Aboriginal people from Australia came to Britain, and he got onto the cliff of Dover and stuck his flag and says, "I claim this land for the Aboriginal nation." It was sort of a joke because that's what the British did to his country. Stick a flag on a piece of earth and say, "This is mine. I designate it." But if you don't stick the flag on it, do we need to? There's that longing for something to claim, isn't there? This passion, clinging. That's what it's called. To establish a solid orientation. We find actually within, as we contemplate this body, there's no solid orientation in there. But there is a very pleasing relationship that can be formed. So it's an object, but an object not in a kind of cold, there's nothing to do with me state, but an object in terms of, there's something we can steady, calm, find balance with, ease, open to. Right? And then you're encouraged to do this, both because it makes things more agreeable, and then it's more agreeable, the heart calms down, and the mind begins to go quiet, and that's agreeable, generating less agitation and confusion. But also because with that calming, the knowingness becomes more apparent. You know, and you start to sort of orient towards being that. Though you can't name it or designate it, there can be that subduing of attention to not discern an object, to almost to rest in something, again, we can't designate, and yet can be experienced. It's open, it allows, and it's constant. But of course, we don't always visit it. So in reality, it's not a constant. In our actuality, it's something we flutter in and out of. But as you lean back on it, you return to that. From this place, one can act in a much more skillful, objective way. One can calm things, steady things, and it's a possibility for clear discernment rather than fuzzy opinionatedness or blind impulse or prejudice to occur, because we see things actually as they are, not claimed, not owned, not entities, not myself. So when we look in the Anapanasati Sutta, how you do this, you widen your attention, include your whole body, as you experience it, through this breathing, flowing energy through, the edges of the body disappear, the solidities recede, and you're into something much more fluid, bright. Of course, it takes practice, years, habits, built in. There's the value of doing this, this is called entering samadhi. And that's what happens if you follow through the stream. You follow through, that's what happens. It's not because you set out, I'm going to grab some samadhi, but if you do these practices, that's the kind of territory you enter into. The thinking mind quietens down. And the Chitta Sankhara, it's to do with will, intention, volition, impulse, inclination, shifting around, oh, this is nice, stay with this. Begins to settle down, calm down. It calms down, we're able to review what happened to the mind, thinking, attention, cogitation, pondering. What mind? And yet, there's awareness, there's perceptions remain, there's feeling remains. But quietening it, steadying it, so the knowing becomes more to the fore. And you know, as you just follow that track, though, you know, it's certainly, I would say, majority of people find it difficult to persist along that track, various reasons. You know, it can lead to a very still and steady being, which is not an entity. It's a dimension of perception and feeling is stabilized. And the feeling, which is quite volatile for most of us, settles down into even, steady state, and then perception becomes quite open space. But, you know, this is a track that the majority of practitioners probably, you know, don't necessarily, their path doesn't go that far. But, you know, again, something not to get kind of stirred up about, because that doesn't help at all. But just keep working on understanding the sankhara, knowing it, always ability to return to the knowing, because the knowing takes you out of the track. And then you can adjust the track, or you can just pause in the track. You know, don't go down habitual tracks. And the passion, you see it as something that pushes you, rushes you, blurs you, obscures your judgment, dispassion. Then the mind does not get there's no establishment. When feeling and perception subside, you know, consciousness is no longer so activated. Still is activated on a subtler level. And there's knowing. So this is how the samadhi process and the knowing process converge, cooperate, they're not in conflict. As I said, you know, we look at the flow of the teaching, samadhi. From samadhi is a basis for jnana, knowingness. Jnana dasanam, knowing and vision. Yatabhutam jnana dasanam, knowing and vision as to how things are coming together, the realm of becoming, how things are formed. And they're being formed, but as we have that foundation, see what is not being formed is me, an entity. That's a blur, that's a kind of tangle, that's a blind spot. And then this openness is knowing jnana. Consciousness is vijnana, so in a way jnana is always evident or established within consciousness, but consciousness in the Pali Suttas involves perception, feeling, and is sankharat. But in the core of it, we have this knowing potential or quality. Vimutti sarana sabbe dhamma. All dhammas have liberation as their core. Remember what I was saying the other day, the Chanda Mulaka, the Mulaka Sutta, Chanda, zeal, interest, desire, inclination is the root. It moves on through attention, contact, feeling, concentration. Because what one feels, the citta focuses on. So this isn't samma samadhi, this is just kind of ordinary, worldly samadhi. What one feels, there your attention, you concentrate on it. You know, you may be considering lofty ideas, you get a pain in your tooth, that's what you concentrate on. You get instant samadhi. So where's the feeling? So, but then mindfulness. So samadhi, then the next step is mindfulness exercises authority. It says no, just know that as a feeling. Don't go any further down that track. Exercise authority over what dhammas are going to arise. Make a dhamma of patience rather than frustration and anguish. Wisdom supervises them. It investigates. As a supervisor, what's in there? It's like when you come to a border, what's in that bag? Excuse me, sir, what's in that bag? Oh, nothing much. Would you open it? Oh. Open it up, wisdom opens it up. Well, there's all sorts of things in here, but there's what there isn't. There's knowing, but there's no self in here. Therefore, the basis for passion, taking a position, frustration, fascination, eliminated, relieved. Therefore, there's no basis. The springboard doesn't get another thing jumping onto it. So right in the heart of these dhammas, if they're penetrated, this kind of openness is within there too. Because that's the nature of them. Otherwise they would be constant, solid. Because they're mutable and changeable and disappear, because there's something about them, about phenomena, about sights and sounds and moods and feelings. That's empty. They've no innate substance. They've no innate quality. The quality is shifting and changing. So in that emptiness, in the core of it, there's no location. That also is a designation. Vimutti sarana sabbe dhamma amatta mogat amatta gata. All dhammas terminate in deathless fruition. Consummation is nibbana. So this penetrative process, seeing, supports that jnana dasana. Jnana, knowingness, what brings that to the fore? When the mind is collected, steadied, so the mental factors that we call our mind dissolve, or abate, subdued. With them, the identity that they support is also subdued, quietened, opened. And it's just tender, open knowingness. And then from there, wisdom can occur because things can be seen much more clearly. And when the passion ceases, then relinquishment of the basis for that. It's to recognize, where I take a stand and how valid that is, how useful it is, what's worth taking a stand on. I take a stand on morality, on virtue, but I'm not going to demand it from everybody else. I'm not going to start doing judging and stuff like that. So as moral without being moralizing. I don't claim it as mine, and everybody else has to belong to it. I say, I'm fortunate in this quality has arrived, and I want to stay open to that and be guided by it. To that extent, there is a self or a responsible individuation, a responsible subjective response, but not the claiming of an identity. I'm such a great person. It's just, no, the virtue has arrived. I'm open to that. The kindness has arrived. The ill will, the bitterness has dissolved. I'm open to this. So in this way, the subjective sense has its values, its purposes, in terms of the realms of action and response. There's a time at which it is no longer running. So as we, fare on, meeting what arises, begin to discern what is called these aggregates, and the Buddha mentioned them. Form. What is a form? It's a weaving together of stuff. There's no such thing as a final form. There's a temporary binding together of elemental properties. What is feeling? Pleasant, unpleasant, mental, based upon sensuality, based upon energies, based upon virtues. So all these are, like that, aren't they? And we see with the clinging to them, there are problems arise. With the correct openness to them, there's a steering, a calming, a brightening that's possible, and a release from suffering. So then you have something, you begin to keep referring back to these as wisdom designations. Again, they're designations, they're not final realities, but they're useful designations. Because then, when you're standing, sitting, chewing, going to a business meeting, you can be sure there's going to be sankhara, consciousness, form, feeling, perception. They come with you. They go with you. So there it is. There it is again. There's the volition, there's the taking a stand, and there's the perception. And there's the knowing. Just that helps to moderate the rest of it. And when we kind of open that our practice to a life. Sitting, standing, walking, reclining, feeling the energies flowing through the body. This is feeling, this is perception, this is kaya sankhara, bodily energy. I can practice like this too. Sick, I could practice like this. Busy, I could practice like this. Passion definitely blurs it. So we move steady, we move clearly, we stay in touch with the knowing.